Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Trinidad and Tobago's procurement bill raises concerns for independent senators in the upper house. This story takes the lead in our 1005th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 11th December 2020. Details when we return. Welcome back. An intense debate in the upper house in Trinidad and Tobago with eyes on the independent bench and their position on the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Amendment Bill. Most independent senators expressed grave reservation. Anselm Gibbs of TV6 News reports.
Urging from the Finance Minister to support the Public Procurement Act and urging from the Finance Minister to support the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Bill passed in the lower house but is up for debate in the Senate.
If heaven forbid someone in this chamber became ill and was being rushed to hospital for emergency surgery, it would be absurd to ask that person or the agency paying for the medical treatment to get a quote from St. Clair, West Shore, and Southern Medical, and then evaluate those quotes and then decide which one had the lowest bidder. Before the person had the surgery, the person would die. Right?
He is seeking support for an amendment which would remove medical, legal, and accounting services from the authority of the Office of Public Procurement. But it was not so palatable for the independent bench.
Government has done a very poor job in selling these amendments to stakeholders, interested parties, and the general public at large. This is evident from the comments on pushback in the public domain.
Independent Senator Cherise Sibasad made no bones about her concern.
An act which initially requires 3/5 majority should not be reduced to a simple majority for any change. This creeping authoritarian approach seems as an attack on the Constitution and democracy itself.
She says the amendments made the Office of the Procurement Regulator impotent.
The following will be removed from the Office of the Procurement Regulator. Government-to-government arrangements. Arrangements with international financial organizations, including projects funded via loans, disposal of real property owned by the government, public-private partnerships such as build, operate, lease, transfer construction projects, and special purpose companies transactions. These services are not only removed from the scrutiny and oversight of the independent Office of the Procurement Regulator and its board, but also from Parliament. Transparency and accountability will be virtually non-existent.
Independent Senator Evans Welch said there has been no serious attempt to explain the proposed amendment. Anselm Gibbs, TV6 News.
Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has called on the nation to draw on the qualities Sir Cornwall Bird Sr. as the country battles COVID-19 and other challenges. The Prime Minister made the comments on Wednesday during the wreath-laying ceremony at the bust of the Father of the Nation. Jamie J. Roger of ABS News reports.
Prime Minister Gaston Brown says as the country celebrates Father of the Nation, Sir Cornwall Bird Sr. on VC Bird Day, people must focus on what made Sir great.
Qualities of resilience, courage, empathy, competence, integrity, hard work, and I could go on and on. But those are the values that he followed. Those are the values that he instilled in this great institution.
Prime Minister Brown says these qualities are helping the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party government surmount every challenge that comes before it. He says while some doubted the country could successfully reopen its borders during the COVID-19 pandemic, he drew on the resiliency of Sir and other forebears.
Those who fought the enslavers for freedom, and subsequently the 39ers and the 76ers, would have fought for our ultimate freedom as we got statehood in 1967 and full independence in 1981.
The Prime Minister vows to continue emulating Sevier by putting service to the country above self.
Sevier and the 39ers, followed by the 76ers, they were instrumental in transforming this country from a backwater country to a modern developing country. And my government, the team of 2014, certainly would have taken this country to higher heights.
Prime Minister Brown says the responsibility of each succeeding administration is to build on the gains of the previous. He highlights the establishment of UE5 Islands as his administration's crowning achievement in the development of education. He says Mount St. John's Medical Center has been upgraded to provide tertiary health care, and the country's housing stock has also significantly improved under his government. The Prime Minister urges the country to celebrate with hope and optimism, saying despite the pandemic, Antigua and Barbuda will still emerge as an economic powerhouse in the region. James J. Roche, ABS News.
A political analyst and former minister of Guyana's government, Dr. Henry Jeffrey, is of the firm view that the meeting of presidents proposed by President Ali should be restructured to reflect more balance and inclusivity from the opposition camp. HGP's Wendell Badri reports.
Political analyst and former Minister of Government, Dr. Henry Jeffrey, in an invited comment with this newscast on Tuesday, has said that the meeting of former presidents proposed by President Irfan Ali should be more balanced and the involved parties should center their discussions on how the government and opposition could collaborate more effectively and cohesively in the best interest of national unity.
One should not lose the chance to have discussion, but on the other hand, that meeting appeared to me pretty skewed in favor of the government, and therefore maybe they should sort of reformulate something and put up their proposal.
Dr. Jeffrey stated that while the opportunity for dialogue should not be passed up, a more balanced structure should be considered.
I think that if you're going to have presidents, you're going to have three persons, and you're going to have Granger. So, I mean, I would have thought that you can reformulate it to have prime ministers or whatsoever too, and therefore it can you can have more people.
He made those remarks against the backdrop of former President David Granger being the lone surviving president from the opposition camp, while the governing party, PPPC, has a representation of three former presidents, Bharat Jagdeo, Donald Ramatar, and Samuel Hines. Should the meeting be reconsidered to include former presidents and the prime ministers, it would see the attendance of former prime ministers Hamilton Green, Moses Nagamutu, Bharat Jagdeo, and Samuel Hines. Dr. Jeffrey continued.
You should have attempt some kind of a balance in a thing like that. And and then you get an agenda. Well, they can determine what their agenda will be, and so that would be my position.
Meanwhile, the political analyst stated that the subject which should take priority at the proposed meeting is how to enhance cordial relations between the government and the opposition.
Obviously, on the agenda, they will have to have an issue to deal with more cordial relationships between the parties, how that will proceed. Not the parties, the government and the opposition, so to speak. So how that will proceed.
It has been reported that former President David Granger is currently in Cuba receiving treatment for non-Hodgkin lymphoma, for which he was diagnosed while serving as president. It is unclear at this time whether he will be back in the country at the proposed time of the meeting, or whether he has even accepted the invitation to meet with the current president. It is also being reported that former President Donald Ramatar has accepted the president's invitation. President Irfan Ali on Friday last, at the launch of the Canada-Guyana Chamber of Commerce, stated that he has proposed a meeting of former presidents for December 15, 2020. Details have not been forthcoming as to what will be discussed at the meeting. Wendell Badri, HGP Nightly News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
On Monday last, Guyana and Suriname inked an agreement which was expected to lead to increased air travel and partnerships in the aviation sector. Wendell Badri again reports.
The agreement was signed between Guyana's Minister of Public Works, Juan Edgel, and Suriname's Minister of Transport, Communication and Tourism, Albert Jubitana, at the Pegasus Hotel. The initiative, dubbed the Open Skies Agreement, came to the fore after a visit by President Ali and a high-level team of officials to the Republic of Suriname on the occasion of that country's 45th independence anniversary in November. The agreement, which was signed on December 7th, also marks the occasion of International Civil Aviation Day 2020, a United Nations Day of Observance. Minister Edgell said that quick action was taken in getting the initiative inked and finalized, thereby removing restrictions on air travel between the two countries.
And this agreement is truly a historic agreement, and it is an unimpeded move to ensure that there is collaboration between both countries.
The minister, while noting that the agreement is testament of the two presidents' vision of making their nation's transportation hubs, spoke to some of the restrictions to be removed through the signing of the agreement.
We have agreed to remove all restrictions on market access, capacity, and pricing to create for a more open market and to give route rights for our respective airlines.
Meanwhile, Minister of Transport, Communication and Tourism of Suriname, Albert Jubitana, posited that the agreement will benefit both local and foreign airlines and represents an important aviation bridge for the two countries, the region, and connected destinations across the globe.
These bridges create better economic conditions by making our markets more accessible, encouraging optimal use of air navigation, aircraft, airport systems, facilitation, safety and security. This connectivity today, under the right condition, will lead to more travel, greater economic development, and increased traffic growth.
The signing of the agreement also comes at a time when the Caribbean Community, CARICOM Secretariat, established its Multilateral Air Services Agreement, MASA Agreement, which seeks to establish a single market for air transport services within the community. Wendell Badri, HGB Nightly News.
St. Lucia recorded its third COVID-19 related death on Wednesday, December 9th. The patient, who was diagnosed with the virus on November 22nd, was being treated for other health-related conditions. Solange Alfred of HTS News Force reports.
A third COVID-19 related death has been recorded in St. Lucia. The confirmation came from Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George on Wednesday, December 9th.
Today, the Ministry of Health also received confirmation of its third COVID-19 related death. The individual is an 83-year-old male from the Soufre district. He was diagnosed with COVID-19 virus on November 22, 2020. He was being treated for other health-related conditions.
COVID-19 is the respiratory disease caused by the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, an infectious pathogen. Public health authorities often note that people with pre-existing medical conditions have a higher risk of a more severe bout of the viral disease. Following the island's first two COVID-19 related deaths, Ministry of Health officials announced that they would not reveal the identities of the deceased. However, family and friends would confirm the deaths of the individuals who were both prominent citizens. Dr. Belmar-George and health officials are commiserating with families who have lost loved ones as a result of the deadly virus.
The Ministry of Health, we recognize that this is a difficult time for the family and loved ones of these gentlemen. We share our sympathies with them for this loss.
Funeral parlors were put on high alert back in November when St. Lucia recorded its first two deaths. Officials stated that proper handling of remains would be reinforced. Medical officers revealed that due to the highly infectious nature of the virus, medical autopsies were not high on the agenda. The third recorded death due to COVID-19 comes as the island recorded a slight decline in the transmission rate and an increase in negative test results.
The Ministry of Health also recorded today 8 COVID-19 recoveries, bringing the new total number of active cases currently in country to 91. To date, St. Lucia has recorded a total of 177 recoveries. We once again encourage everyone to maintain the recommended infection prevention and control guidelines of hand hygiene, use of a face mask in public places which covers the mouth, chin, and the nose, and maintaining the separation of 6 feet when in public. If experiencing flu-like symptoms, keep away from others and seek medical care immediately at the closest community respiratory clinic.
Globally, as of Wednesday, 9th December, there were 68.5 million COVID-19 cases, 44.4 million recoveries, and 1.56 million deaths. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.